I became an adjunct professor, San Jacinto College in Pasadena, history professor. But so I want to have the difficulty that I find a lot is okay, what do you put in the lesson plan, or what do you put in the uh, in the presentation? And I wanted it to be more than about names, dates, battles, and stuff like that, because that stuff people remember. Test day, they take the test, and then it's gone. Right? That's the whole point. But I wanted to come from a master naturalist perspective, and that's why I titled this slide presentation, what it is: a history of diverse cultures, people, flora, and fauna of Brazoria County, Texas. It's the perspective of a master naturalist. All right, let's go on. So who am I? Marlon Nation, United States Air Force, retired, adjunct professor, U.S. History, San Jack College. Now, for clarity purposes, this semester I took a knee because I've been doing it for 7.5 years. I said, department head, give me a break. And so I'll probably go back in the summer or the fall. But that's where I am, certified master naturalist. This chapter, Cradle of Texas chapter, is my chapter, is my home chapter, and I'm proud of it. All right, class of 2023, and I am a Pearland resident. So I'm way up there where it butts against Harris County. That's where I live. All right. All right. So why is it important? And I'm not going to necessarily read from the screen verbatim, but it's important because it's more than just a study of memorization of names, dates, and major battles and significant events. It's about gaining insight into the cultures, activities, environments, people, and lives of society's past. That's why it's important, right? Naturalists, those who we strive to be and those who we are, naturalists are ideally skilled and suited to observe, record, identify, and present the aspects and characteristics of our natural world. That's what we do. If it lives or exists in the natural world, there are questions to be asked. And the first question is, why? Why? Right? Curiosity and inquiry, they're our motivation. They're my motivation. Curiosity, inquiry, what is this all about? Where did this come from? What does this do? What does this mean? Where does this fit in? Is this dangerous? Can it hurt me? Right? So the concern for creation and the openness to awe and wonder, that's my motivation. That's my motivation. Why? Because my God, just in the eco environment of a drop of rain, just phenomenal. And you'll see that. You'll see that. All right. Questions, not answers, stimulate the mind. That's a quote directly from the Master Naturalist Curriculum. All right. Let's go on. All right. Here's my overview. Here are the things that I'm not going to do specifically, but it's an overview of what I plan on doing throughout the presentation. Present Brazoria County history from a master naturalist perspective. Highlight units 2 and 3 of the curriculum, that great book that you guys have. And let me tell you, that book is a gem. It is a gem. It's well researched, well documented, well sourced, well put together. It's just a great book. And there was some question, I believe, as to whether or not we wanted to continue with the book. And my vote was absolutely yes. Absolutely. And that's my perspective. All right. Discuss master naturalist interests in Brazoria County. Discuss pre-Texas independence culture. Highlight the origins of Brazoria County and the Brazos River. Present current news and information on topics related to the history of Brazoria County. And highlight a couple of lesser known individuals in Brazoria County that you may or may not have heard of. And provide sources for additional research on Brazoria County history. All right. So again, the perspective of a master naturalist. This is one of my favorite individuals by the name of E.O. Wilson. That's a documentary about Mr. Wilson. And he said that you are capable of more than you know. Choose a goal that seems right for you and strive to be the best, however hard the path. Aim high, behave honorably, prepare to be alone at times. Story related to me by one of a fellow master naturalist. She was out in the field by herself doing research, and I think off to the side, she detected some wild hogs. by yourself. So prepare to work by yourself, but always be conscious of your surroundings. Always know what's going on around. And that was Miss Barbara Willie, by the way, who was out there and encountering wild hogs. Yes, they don't have a sense of humor from what I understand. So um, prepare to be alone at times and endure failure. Persist. The world needs all you can give. All of you. The world needs it. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. One thing I want to highlight, though, is that all knowledge, all life, and all experiences should not be viewed as existing in isolated parts, but as a whole, each portion which throws light on all the other, and that the tendency of all is to improve the human mind and give it new sources of power, enjoyment, and utility. All disciplines contribute to sweeten, to adorn, and improve and embellish life. So the architect is connected to the plumber. The doctor is connected to the carpenter. It all connects. And you'll see that profoundly in nature. All right, you'll see that. All right. One thing that I want to highlight, because you just finished the Orientology class.
Marlon, you might want to hit back. We lost your slide.
One thing that I want to highlight is that, should have got the right slide there.
No, it'd be the one before it, I believe.
Yeah, let me see.
There it is.
Oh, there it is. Again, I mentioned that I was in the Air Force, well over 30 years. We flew flight aircraft everywhere from the Philippines to Panama to Iraq to Israel, all over the world. Sometimes people were shooting at you, sometimes they weren't. But the constant threat to aircraft were birds. Wherever we flew, they flew, right? And we had a program in the Air Force called the BASH program. Bird, Wildlife, Aircraft Strike Hazard. BASH. The team's goal is the preservation of warfighting capabilities through the reduction of wildlife hazards to aircraft operations. So it's like the third session or so, the one that you guys just went through, Orientology, and I'm sitting there and the topic comes up. Go back. Here. Christine Rivers, Miss Carla Dove, published a book on feather identification, bird habitats and behaviors. And so I go back to my Air Force days on the flight line, and I have seen many aircraft return that have been struck by birds. Here's the canopy of an F-16. That's another F-16. And it looks like some sort of raptor of some sort that's caught in a landing gear. Those are the hazards. Now, I've always been on this side. In other words, the aircraft comes back, bird strike has been identified, and then we go into the BASH program. The BASH program means make sure the aircraft is secure, take a specimen of the bird, bag it up, and then you just send it off to wherever it goes. My job is done. So I'm sitting there, and then I see this presentation. This is where it goes. These are the people that identify the remains of the bird. And I'm, my God, it's all coming together. So that's where it goes. That's what you guys do. So it is all connected. The light went on for me. 105,000 wildlife strikes since 2005. 13 aircraft, 25 deaths. So it's serious. It is serious. And there are people, there are naturalists, there are co-naturalists in this chapter who dedicated a great portion of their lives identifying it and addressing this. It's amazing. It was amazing to me. All right. So curriculum focus, Unit 2, Archaeology. Unit 3, Historical Naturalists of Texas and the History of Brazoria County. Right out of the text. All right. All right. So let's talk about Brazoria County a little bit. Again, not going to give you a lot of names and dates and battles and fights and wars. There's time for that, and I will get into that at other times, but not tonight, right? Ancient peoples arrived in Texas around circa 11,000, 8,000 BC. First European contact with Native Americans, Mexican independence from Spain, Schooner Lively. Mexico encourages foreign settlement in Texas. Austin's impresarial contract, first one was signed in 1825. Mexico banned immigration, Texas independence, 1836. Brazoria County founded, 1836, and then Texas admitted to the Union as a state in 1845. All right, so I'm going to start from the 30,000-foot view, and I'm just going to focus on down to Brazoria County. So migration of the first Americans, pre-Columbian America, Native societies, European exploration, pre-Texas Revolution cultures, Gulf Coast inhabitants, early Brazoria County territory. So here we are, right? Pre-Columbus contact, early America. The theory is that individuals migrated across the Bering Strait when you could into the interior of North America, Central America, and farther into South America. And of course, we are here, right? All right. So why did they move? Why did people come to Brazoria County? Why did individuals pre-Columbus come to Brazoria County? Well, people moved for a number of reasons. People moved for to advance the causes of their religion, God, right? That was part of why people moved. People moved searching for treasures. Gold certainly was one of the motivations for the Spanish. National glory. People moved for that. Ground. People wanted a place of their own. People wanted a place that they could settle. And one that I like to tell my students, grub. They were looking and following things to eat, right? Following the herds. So that's why people. All right. So how do we know? How do we know there were people before us? How do we know there were cultures and societies in pre-Columbian Texas and Brazoria County? How can we be sure? Why is it important? Any lasting impact? Right? How do we know that? Do we just say, well, they just were? How do you know they were? Well, I just think they were. Well, how do you know they were? Well, going to the text again, what evidence do we look for? How does the past speak to the present? Well, speaks to us through fossils, through bones, through herds, pottery, structures, tools, trails, etchings, pictographs, formations. All of those things that we discover from the past speak to the future. And the science of archaeology, which is what the text talks about, specializes in that. And there, I know Melanie likes rocks. I know a number of you like the study of other natural phenomena, such as, let me see, forts, things like that. As a part of the Master Naturalist curriculum or Master Naturalist activities, whatever your interest is, you can explore it. Because it's all connected. It is all connected. All right. Let's go on. Primary, secondary source. This is where I kind of get, and I'm not going to do much of it. It's kind of professorial here, just kind of, Primary and secondary sources, documents, letters, journals, census records, diaries, oral histories, manuscripts, newspapers, photographs, maps, video recordings, objects, artifacts. All of those things speak from the past to the future. And that's what we build upon. Okay. Well, this is what they found then. Let me see if do I need to reinterpret this, or what value is this? And then we just build upon the next thing. All right. Naturalist musing. As a naturalist, and I'll drop some of these quotes in there every so often. As a naturalist, you will never suffer from that awful modern disease called boredom. There is always something that's stimulating, or you can be stimulated by, always, right? So go out and greet the natural world with curiosity and delight and enjoy it. Just enjoy it. The growth of a naturalist is like the growth of a musician or an athlete. Excellence for the talented, lifelong enjoyment for the rest of us, and the benefit of humanity. That's it. That is it. That's it. And it's more often than not, it's free. Right? All right. Archaeology, the scientific study of materials remaining from past human cultures. The discipline as a science is only about 150 years old. Texas Archaeological Society, those of you who are interested in archaeology, there is a group of like-minded individuals in the area that you can join up with. All right. I want to play, and most of the clips that I show you are only about 2 to 3 minutes long. I'm gonna play this one. I think I have to do it with a mouse though. I'm gonna click on that.
Okay.
Okay. Right. 1 second. Now, I also in advance want to apologize for any advertisement that may come up. But that's certainly not the intent.
Okay.
And we can get through without any of the previous, so we'll continue. Anything that I've said thus far is weird or strange or not making any sense or anything like that?
I'm gonna go back there and make sure that
Okay.
restarts.
And we will move through, because if there's a problem loading the videos, we'll just go without.
Why don't you describe to them about that excavation?
Well, it's an excavation project that's going on, or that went on not far from here in Matagorda Bay. Archaeologists excavating the La Salle, which was a vessel that was a Spanish vessel that was shipwrecked in this part of the country. And it just highlights a lot of the work that archaeologists were doing. It's pretty fascinating, and which wasn't very far from here. So I was going to highlight that as part of the archaeology block. All right, but we'll go on. But you can see the shape of the vessel, and of course the archaeologists working. And what they've done here is they identified the spot, found the wreckage, and then they built. This is actually enclosed in the bay. I mean, it's this little small area, but these are pillars and piles that they put up, and then they pump the water out of this part of the excavation site. So folks will walk in, and of course work in there, and so forth and so on. But there's water all around that. Pretty fascinating. Okay. All right, let's go on. Naturalist contributions: observing, identifying, drawing, writing, sketching, recording. John Muir was one of the most famous. So was Audubon, and they recorded their works. They recorded their observations, right? And so we take that and we can build upon that. They didn't have things like iNaturalist, where you had this community of master naturalists documenting things, but they left their work into volumes that we can go in and that we can read their writings and their drawings and so forth and so on. Pretty spectacular, right? All right, the mind and values of a naturalist. He instilled in me the mind and the values of a naturalist, to be open to all possibilities, to be a close and careful observer, to discipline my interpretation with facts, and to work hard at my passions so that they may bear fruit. Right? So, and it's not, it is when your interest marry with scientific value, and you never get bored. And you're leaving a trail behind you that others can follow. Right? Everything is connected. All right, let's go on. Early naturalists of Texas. The spirit of the early naturalists was one of tremendous courage and fortitude. The conditions in which they worked were often hostile, uncomfortable, physically grueling, and harsh. Still, the desire to discover and catalog into uncharted territories drove these men to continue their work. These men and women to continue their work. All right? The work they did benefited current generations, but also laid the foundations for who? For us. A lot of their work is highlighted in their text. We get the benefit to sit in an air-conditioned room and read about it, as opposed to being out there fighting mosquitoes, and unless that's your thing. But everything contributes. Everything is important. All right? All right, let's go on. Maybe. Thomas Drummond, he's highlighted in your text. Most of his work, or a lot, he was Scottish in origin, but he spent 21 months working the area between Galveston Island and the Edwards Plateau, especially along the Brazos, Colorado, and Guadalupe rivers. His collections were the first made in Texas that were extensively distributed among museums and scientific institutions of the world. He collected 750 species of plants, 150 species of birds, and in an attempt to make a complete botanical survey of Texas, however, he passed away in one of the places that I would like to visit one day. He passed away in Cuba, 1835. But the work that he did before then is just provides more and more of that foundation of the work that we do, right? Pre-Texas Revolution, before Anglo-American colonization, the region was occupied, but now I've heard it pronounced Karankawa and Karankawa, right? Native Americans here. Archaeological excavation, again, that science of excavating, identifying, and cataloging artifacts of the past reveals some of the shell-made middens and campsite refuse of this nomadic people. Exploited maritime and mainland resources on a seasonal basis as early as 450 AD, right? The Indian, including the Battle of Jones Creek here in Brazoria County, all right? In 1824, resulted in the expulsions of most of the Indian population to the area south of the Rio Grande Valley by 1850. Now, sometimes, well, I'll get back to that in a minute. So, what did they see? What did they see when they arrived here? Whenever they came out here, what did they see? Well, they saw deer. They saw fish, birds, oysters, dolphins, turkeys, rabbits. All of those things is what they experienced. They experienced seasons. They experienced tides. They experienced storms. All of those things they experienced just like we experienced those things. In fact, the same moon they saw is the moon we see. The very same one. That's what they saw. And like Melody was saying earlier, probably saw it a whole lot clearer than we do because of all the stuff that's in the atmosphere now. All right, let's go on. Brazoria County, Texas. Well, that's good. Located in the prairie Gulf Coast at the mouth of the Brazos River. You're here. All right, it's bordered by Matagorda, Fort Bend, Harris, and Galveston counties. Covers an area of, now that's debatable, 1,400 square miles. Its highest point, Damon Mound, 146 feet above sea level. But that's where we are. That's where we are. All right, so go on. Brazoria County, part of the introduction, taken from the Houston Archaeological Society Journal. Much of the history of Texas occurred in Brazoria County. It is generally agreed that Cabeza de Vaca landed on the shores of San Luis Pass in 1528. Stephen F. Austin's first boatload of colonists landed at the mouth of the Brazos River in 1821. The first shots of the Texas Revolution were fired at the mouth of the Brazos at Fort Vesasco, and I think the presentation that follows this is going to highlight that. The first capital of the new republic was at Columbia. All here in Brazoria County, right? So again, where are we? Galveston, Chambers, Liberty, Jefferson, all those counties around us. Of course, Pearland, I always say that. Up here, right? Brazoria, Matagorda, that's where the site, this area here is the site of the LaSalle excavation. Fort Bend County, Colorado County, Austin. Naturalist note, located at the intersection of two bird flyways. I'm sure you guys heard that term in your discussion in the ornithology class, right? So ideally suited for to observe bird migration. Intercoastal waterway, annual rainfall 52 inches, highest point 146 feet. Principal streams, the Brazos, San Bernard Rivers, Oyster Creek, Brasher Bayou, and Chocolate Bayou, to name just a few. All right. Major cities, of course, Pearland, Angleton, Freeport, Alvin, and many, many others. I didn't deliberately leave anybody out, like Danbury, Liverpool. I didn't deliberately do that. So I'm just going to put these on there. And I'm going to put Pearland on top. Wasn't intended. But you can see where we are. Brazoria National Wildlife Refuge, San Bernard National Wildlife Refuge. All those places here, Quintana, Surfside Beach, all of that is here in Brazoria County. Oh, by the way, when you guys are going to go, have been up to the Gulf yet? All of that's out there. Just a master naturalist dream. Now, short on mountains, but that's okay, right? All right, 1,500 square miles, 12 county parks, 23 miles of sandy beaches, two major rivers, intercoastal waterway, Gulf of Mexico shoreline, 3 national wildlife refuges, 21 public boat ramps, all of it. Now, I have one of my favorite events that we went on as a naturalist, and it was to Mohawk Park. Was it Mohawk?
Camp Mohawk.
Camp Mohawk. At night. And it was the what did you
The
call it?
boat launch across
The
from
boat launch across the way at night. That is an experience that you don't want to miss.
The creature hunt?
The creature hunt. Because you will experience, of course, moments of darkness, but you will experience moments of vulnerability if you don't quite know what made that sound. Like what was that kind of thing. And you will see some of the skills that some of your master naturalists, your master naturalists have, some of your co-master naturalists have, that I had no idea they could do. I remember on our hunt, I forget who was it that spotted the leopard frog. And I'm
Who
like,
was that?
yeah,
No, it wasn't me that spotted it. Somebody else.
And then how Melanie could stand back and she could say, okay, look across the field. You see those little reflections right there? Those are the eyes and whatnot of spiders.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. I'm like,
Now they won't go.
I'm going, but it is, in fact, when you guys go, I want to accompany you.
We'd love to have you.
That was really good, really good. All right, so that's what's available to you right here in Brazoria County. All right, iNaturalist, and I'm sure you guys have been exposed to it or not.
Not yet. They're about to.
Just a fascinating tool that you are encouraged to become a part of. Right, and I just pulled this information from it, Brazoria County, Texas. 3,918 confirmed species of flora and fauna here in Brazoria County. Just amazing.
Is that native or is that to incorporate?
I think that's all of it. I think that's all of it. All right, just another rendition of yeah.
Okay.
All right, a naturalist treasure. We've talked about that. iNaturalist, we've talked about. Just again, another rendition of Brazoria County, just a different format. Right, Jamaica Beach, Galveston Island, Freeport, Jones Creek, Angleton, all there. Right, Brazos River, also known as the arms of God through the eyes of a naturalist. The watershed of Brazos, starting here, Texas, just below the Texas Panhandle, all the way down throughout Texas, and of course, culminating at the Gulf of Mexico. One of 2 major rivers in Texas that empties into the Gulf of Mexico through an undredged mountain. The result is a deltaic environment that provides excellent habitat for shorebirds. Extensive bottomland hardwood forests that line the banks of the Brazos and associated marshes provide habitat for a wide variety of bird species. Right here in Brazoria County, alligators, bobcats, white-tailed deer, raccoons, gray foxes, feral hogs, all here. All right. So again, what did the early inhabitants see? What did they see? Well, they saw pecan trees. They saw pin oak. They saw live oak, mulberry, hackberry, ash, elm. And there is a trip in which you're going to. Who was it that conducted that?
Chris Kneupper.
Just amazing, amazing. The vegetation he can identify. Just amazing, right? Saw elm, cottonwoods, sedges, bunch of grass. This is what they saw. Right? Now, what didn't they see? They did not see alligator weed. They didn't see giant salvinias. They didn't see Chinese tallow trees. They didn't see nutria, those things that we see. They didn't see fire ants. They didn't see monk parakeets. Why parakeets? Why? Because those are invasive species. Those are things, and of course they didn't see apple snails. And you're going to see a lot of apples. right? These things that were brought into the county. All right, let's go on. People and cultures of Brazoria County: Native Americans, Spanish explorers, Mexican Americans, Anglo Americans, African Americans. All of these individuals make up the history of Brazoria County. All right, let's go on. Maybe there we go. Karankawa, indigenous people of the Gulf Coast. They made up part of Brazoria County. In fact, they were here prior to basically anyone else anyone else arriving in the county. They were here. All right, go on. Karankawa's first contact with Europeans. Narvaez expedition, 1528, nomadic in nature, traveling in groups of 30 or 40 under the leadership of one chief. Now I've got a number of links there that talks about the recent scholarship and the recent news, so to speak, about these people once thought extinct, but there are a number of efforts underway saying that, look, we can trace our descendancy back to this native tribe. So that's out there. All right. Where did they roam? What was their territory? From Galveston to Corpus, right? The approximate extent of that territory is where they were. And of course, Brazoria County. That's a picture of development, Corpus Christi oil infrastructure. That was part of their territory as well. All right. Initially, after Native American exploration, not exploration, but the Native American presence, Spanish exploration influenced coastal Texas. The one I want to highlight the most is this Alvar Nunez Cabaza de Vaca, because that's a picture of him. Left Spain as part of an expedition seeking resources in the New World, becomes the first European to set foot in Texas, right? Published the first literary work about Texas as its subject. La Relación, a remarkable work considered a cornerstone of the history of the Spanish Southwest. All right, and that is it. It is a fascinating look into the lives, people, the expedition, all of that when he encountered Native American people here in Brazoria County and the Gulf of Mexico. Just fascinating, fascinating. First published in 1542, it is the first book written about Texas. It is brilliantly composed ethnographic history, which provides readers with a first-hand account of life in Texas in the 1500s. All right, let's go on. Okay. There we go. Back here. And I'll mention this gentleman, then maybe it'll take 5 minutes or so. All right, Estevancio was assuredly, this individual was the first African to enter the Americas and traverse Texas, and in the company of 3 Spaniards re-entered Texas from Mexico. His life remains an enigmatic tale of resilience and exploration, leaving a lasting impact on the early history of European exploration in North America. His journey, as chronicled by the book that I mentioned earlier, provided valuable insights into the peoples, wildlife, geography of Western North America, making him a significant figure in history, peoples, wildlife, and the geography of Western North America. So another one of those individuals who was present in Texas, but lesser known. All right, so we want to take a break there. I'll pick up and after about 5 minutes. That's okay.
Y'all want to take a little break? Don't all hit the door at the same time. I think you have them captivated.
I'm editing as I go. It should say millions. It is in Arizona, absolutely.
Yeah.
All over southwestern part of the United States. Yeah. That one is not in Arizona. Yeah.
But it is a good spot to do a
Good.
drone.
So he traveled not just across Texas, but all across the South.
The Southwest.
Amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Was there any background on how he ended up with that group? Or?
Once they left the European continent, he was one of the enslaved individuals of the expedition.
Oh,
He was later killed because of the way he was treating some Native Americans. From what I now, that's what the record is. Sure.
I think it's good to be able to see some of the characters.
Hmm?
It's good to be able to see some of the characters
I agree.
like this.
I don't want to take up too much time.
You're doing great. Take your time. I think it's worth it.
Melanie, there's a couple of questions in the chat.
Let me look. Let's see what we got. Kim Calhoun is saying she loves the presentation. Let's see. Oh, Omar just made it. Okay. What was the name of the African American?
Yeah. Yes.
See if I can get this to everybody. Yes. TV. Hello, how are you doing, Omar? I was just making sure I spelled it right. My Spanish is not very good. And the book.
Relación. Let's do this. I'll go back to this.
Okay.
There we go. There it is.
Yeah.
And there's a copy of it online. I'll do that and read.
Anyway, yeah. Yeah.
Do you know a link for,
I do.
or could you give it to us later? Was that at the bottom of one of your slides? The one before that, I think. What is it? No, we'll do iNaturalist first. Yeah. Hello. Welcome. We wanted to wait until we had enough creatures out there to find.
But I guess with the creature man at different location. What do you?
We're going to go the same place.
Oh, okay. You said Mohawk.
Well, Camp Mohawk is the county park right across the street from it.
Okay.
You get a
Oh, does it say?
No.
okay. We'll just send out a information by email to
Okay.
everybody. That'll be the easiest.
They were.
I know. In my
Yeah, we
spare
might
time.
Yes.
It's all fun.
That's pretty cool. No, no, you're good.
Okay, guys.
Pick up where I left off, but a couple of things, and with me, once something pricks my mind, until I talk about it, it'll be there until the presentation is over. Just again to show you how serendipity and everything is connected. I talked about the bird strikes and on military aircraft and so forth, so on. And before class started, just in casual talk, um, uh, a gentleman who's a co-intern of yours by the name Robin, and I hope you don't mind me mentioning this, the conversation we had. No, yeah, okay. Um, I won't say born and bred Air Force, but Air Force is a significant part of my history. RF-4C aircraft, a significant part of my history. And the R and RF stands for reconnaissance. Reconnaissance fighter aircraft, RF-4. Saw a lot of action in Vietnam and other places after that. But just in the discussion, I was talking about how much the F-4 meant to me because it was part of my development. And Robin relayed the story of his brother, right? In the back seat of an F-4, who was shot down over Vietnam. The pilot made it back, but his brother didn't make it back. And that resonated with me because I've worked on those aircraft for a great portion of my life, but I had never engaged like that. And it was pretty profound. It's pretty interesting. So thanks for sharing it also. And also in the archaeological part of the discussion, I remember from last Saturday when the interns were introducing themselves, or that Saturday, and the young lady in the back was talking about arrowheads, I believe. Was talking about arrowheads, and I wanted to highlight that again, because again, it's all connected, and you never know what's going to spark your interest. You just don't know. I mentioned the spark bird, a term that I heard in one of the first classes. Okay, what's a spark bird? What's a spark bird? What's that spark bird thing? And a spark bird is that initial bird that you encounter that just piques your interest. From that everything flows out, right? And so my spark bird is the yellow crowned night heron, which is common to this area. And I happened across it by happenstance. I was cutting my yard one day and I ran across fresh crawdads. I'm going, man, there's no crawdads in the yard. Where did this come from? So I kind of blew it off. And the following week or week or two, I'm cutting the grass again, and there's some more. I'm going, where is this coming from? Is something dropping in the grass, or what is this? And then I find out there is a nest in a pine tree, easily 30, 40 feet high. And then there's a chick in the nest, and then I'm sitting there watching it now. And at dusk, the mother comes back, and now I am just sparked, right? And just fascinating. And then eventually it grew and it flew away. Just an amazing encounter. Again, staying open to the awness and wonder of it all. And if you just stop and listen and look, you'd be amazed at what you discover. Didn't cost me nothing. I was just cutting the grass. There we go. And then I said, listen, I got to get into the master naturalist class. There's a lot of stuff I don't know. Nonetheless, let's move on. All right. All right. Mexican American culture. I have a piece on this. It's a YouTube video, but I'm not going to play it because it may bog down the system. But if you are ever in the capital of this great state, there is a huge monument on the Capitol grounds. And it talks about Spanish Tejanos and Tejanos under the Mexican flag all of those things and the impact that Hispanics had on, not Hispanic, but Mexicans had on this part of the country. It's just fascinating. If there was an individual by the name of De Leon, last name of De Leon, who also had impresarial contracts to settle this part of Texas as well. So all of that is there, and it's all connected. All right. Anglo-American settlement and influence. We know that. We know the settling of Anglo-Americans in Texas, and Moses and Stephen Austin, not native Texans, of course, but came here to settle this part of the country. And remember, all of this was a part of Mexico prior to becoming the Republic of Texas and of course the United States. But there were individuals who came from different places like Missouri to settle this land in cooperation with the Mexican government. And impresarial contracts were those written documents that said, okay, here's our agreement. Because think about it, the Mexican frontier expanded from Central America all the way up to nearly Utah and above. All of the Western United States, all of that was a part of Mexican territory. Moses and Stephen Austin, key players. Also, Emily Austin, the sister of Stephen Austin, was a key player in the settlement of Brazoria County and Texas. The old 300, you will see references to that, and that refers to the approximate 300 original families that were part of Stephen Austin's impresarial contract that were that signed on to come in and settle this part of Texas, and also establishing Brazoria County. All right. So there have been volumes and just massive amounts of literature, well-kept literature, again, primary sources highlighting the development of Brazoria County and the development of Texas. It's all there to see, right? The old imperial law offered heads of families a league and a labor of land, 4,605 acres and other inducements. It also provided for the employment of agents called impresarios to promote immigration. As an impresario, Austin was to receive 67,000 acres of land for 200 families he brought into Texas. Just amazing, just amazing. And his tract of land is generally considered to be a net, and it runs from here up like that. Just a massive amount of acreage and land under contract for him to bring in settlers. All right. Approximate location of Austin's land grant. Now this is geographically neat, but this area here, part of all of that is a part of his land contract. Okay. Moses was off the old 300 marker located. There is an actual historical marker located in West Columbia, Texas, that you can walk up, read, and touch. And it's the physical spot of 89 of Austin's old 300 colonists had acquired land grants in what is now Brazoria County by 1824. The earliest communities were Velasco, East Columbia, West Columbia, and later West Columbia, and Brazoria. Guantana and Liverpool were also settled before 1832. We walk by, it might be at the edge of a Walmart parking lot, that marker that's been sitting there for years, and people see it as a nuisance, but when you stop and listen and look, you go, my goodness, this is where that began. This is where that happened. All right. And it's right there. It's sitting there right now. Right. San Felipe, an American settlement, including Brazoria County origins. I was going to play a portion of this DVD because it gives an excellent history of that, but I'm not going to do that. Talks about pre-revolution Texas, Mexican Americans, Anglo Americans, archaeology, women, social life, and slavery. All of that is a part of Brazoria County history. All right. Impresario contracts, again, a primary source document, the actual document that lays out the conditions for those who wanted to colonize Texas. Those who Stephen F. Austin says, okay, you can come in if you meet these conditions. Right? The contract is there. Anglo-Americans came to Mexican Texas because of the generous land grants to settlers. Each head of family, even widows, could claim a league of pasture. The colonists paid about $192 for the 4,075 acre head right in fees to the state surveyor, land commissioner, and the person who wrote the deed. That is drawing people into this territory. Mexican territory that belongs to Mexico now, but that is how, and that is what the attraction was. Part of the attraction was it is part of the country. All right. There is a copy of his specific contract as well, but I won't bring that up for you. Another historical marker, Brazos River, whose formal name, Brazos de Dios in Spanish for the arms of God, is the longest river in Texas. And it has wound its way through Texas. It witnessed the coming of the first Anglo settlers, the signing of the Texas Declaration of Independence at Washington on the Brazos, and the swearing in of Sam Houston and the Republic's first duly elected government in Colombia. That marker is it highlights, tells you exactly where it's at. It's in West Columbia as well, right off of State Highway 31. All right, let's go back. Individual who, one of the lesser known individuals of Brazoria County, a lady by the name of Marlon Nation. And yes, I did look to see, well, my goodness, am I related or is anything going on here? No connection. Forerunner in the temperance movement, you know, the regulation and abolishment of alcohol. Name of Marlon Nation. Where'd she go? It's slide 51, I believe. And the reason I highlight her is that's perfect. We go this way. The reason I highlight her is because she has a hatchet in her hand. But during a brief and troubled time in her life, Carrie Amelia Moore Nation operated the Old Columbia Hotel here in Brazoria County. On this site about 1880, she later achieved fame as a hatchet-wielding crusader against the use of alcohol, drink, and tobacco.
She just like hatcheting barrels of
She would
alcohol.
go to saloons and just take probably that hatchet along with her and say, we will rid the world of this evil scourge or whatever you know.
She was not right.
No. But again, you can see the site of her hotel right here in Brazoria County, right, East Columbia, intersection of Front Street, County Road 300B. All right, let's go on. Now, the African American presence and influence with their arrival in 1528. People of African descent, enslaved and free, were instrumental in the settlement of Spanish Texas as well. Though African people occupied the lower end of the Castas racial category system of Spanish Texas, some Africans and mixed race people were able to ascend the classification system by gaining wealth and prestige through their labor. And of course, again, there is a video attached to that, but I'm not going to play it for the sake of time. Now, there was a conflict. I say a conflict, a difference of opinion between the Mexican government and the new settlers of Texas. And that conflict was over slavery. Slavery had been outlawed in Mexico, but again, as individuals moved from the east to the west into the interior of Texas, looking for land or whatever the case may be, they wanted to bring their labor along with them. And this labor was in the form of enslaved people, right? So the conflict was there. But bottom line is that the settlers received a sort of exemption to the slavery restriction. And that is how, in a nutshell, slavery came to exist in Texas and as well this part of Texas. All right. Now, land, labor, capital is what factors of production. Looks like you have the land here in Texas. Looks like you've got the labor. So what are you going to grow? What this part of the country? What are you going to grow? The cotton plant, right? Sugar cane, rice. All of those cash crops were predominant in this part of Texas, along with a lot of others, right? The plantations that we'll talk about here in a minute. These are the types of things they were growing. All right. Slavery in Brazoria County alone, there were 63 plantations. A coastal region with rich soils, long growing seasons, access to markets, transportation system, Brazoria County was a premier agricultural producer and once home to the capital of Texas. But what many people don't know is that much of the counties in Southeast Texas prosperity was built by enslaved men or women. It is just a nature of history, right? African Americans contributing to Brazoria County's history. Mr. William Pauley, Levi Jordan Plantation State Historical Site Educator, mentioned that since Texas colonization, people of African descent have been contributing to the state in its history. With their arrival in Texas as early as 1528, African Americans, whether enslaved or free, were instrumental in settling Spanish Texas. Everything is connected. Everybody has contributed in some role or another. Some roles may not be as famous and some may be infamous, but the growth of Brazoria County is due to a contributing effort of a number of people in different countries. Just kind of like the United States. All right, let's go on. Levi Jordan Plantation. I don't know if we're going to visit that or not during the class, but also the Varna Hog Plantation were two of the 60 or so plantations here in Brazoria County. All right. It wasn't until recent years that places like the Texas Historical Commission's Levi Jordan Plantation and Varna Hog Plantation State Historic Sites shifted a portion of the narrative to the enslaved workers who built and maintained these properties. For many African Americans who were enslaved at these plantations, the only record of their existence lies in what they created. That's it. Another lesser known individual, but let me highlight this too. He is a current member of the Cradle of Texas Chapter.
Chris Kneupper.
So when you're doing this, remember I said everything builds on itself? I'm doing the research and I'm going, well, I want to give whoever took this picture, I want to give them credit because I don't want people to think, well, Mr. Nation, who's out there taking these pictures, so I'm going to take it as my own and I'm going to put it. No, that's just wrong. So I want to give Mr. Kneupper credit for the photo that he took and that I'm using. Highlighting Mr. Charlie Brown. Brown married Isabella, a former slave from the Dance Plantation. When he died in 1920, he owned several businesses, including a grist, sugar, and sawmills, and the county's first cotton gin. A Houston Post article identified him as a millionaire and the wealthiest African American in the state. He was the single largest landowner and taxpayer in Brazoria County and was appreciated by diverse citizenship of West Columbia. That marker located again, West Columbia, Texas, and Brazoria County. It's right there. If we pass by them all the time, stop, look, and listen. We'll see people who had an influence on the county, right? Musings of a Naturalist, coming to the end. This is Henry David Thoreau. If we were in my history class, I would talk about the Transcendentalist and Emerson and Thoreau and Margaret Fuller, but I'm not going to talk about them. But I'm going to say he had a lot to say about nature, right? He said, I love nature, partially because she is not man, but a retreat from man. None of his institutions control or pervade her. There's a different kind of right that prevails. He said, there in nature, a different kind of right prevails. In her midst, I can be glad about my place in creation. If this world were all a man, I could not stretch myself. I should lose all hope. He is constraint. She, nature, is freedom to me. He makes me wish for another world. Nature makes me content with this world. All right? All right. My muse, what stimulates me? I would say, well, it depends on the week. It depends on what I'm reading. But I am becoming more and more and more enamored with the American buffalo. Just a fascinating creature to me. Its resilience, the impact that it's had on American history, all of that. Just the massive numbers that were lost. It's just an amazing creature. Mr. Stephen Ranelli mentioned that at once the buffalo is a symbol of the tenacity of wilderness and the destruction of wilderness. It's a symbol of Native American culture and the death of Native American culture. It is a symbol of the strength and vitality of America and the pettiness and greed of America. It represents a frontier both forgotten and remembered. It stands for freedom and captivity, extinction and salvation. Kind of like life. But that's one of my muses, and I'm going to take it as far as I can and find out more and more and more about it. All right, all right. That's it. All of my sources are listed here. Also, photo credits for those that I could glean from the information that I found. It's all there as well. Thank you all a lot. Again, my privilege to do it. I love doing it. I say it. I love the presentations. I love the research. I love just being a master naturalist. And here's one thing I like to say about the chapter is that, quite honestly, I applied to 2 other chapters before being accepted by this chapter. The just cumbersomeness and the awkwardness, and I'm not going to knock any other chapters, but I'll say, remember those counties that we talked about earlier? There were some of those counties out there around. Nonetheless, Melanie's passion and her engagement, and then getting here and seeing the hospitality of people like Mickey, past president, and people who are just dedicated to their passions. I said, this is it. This is it. And that's how it's been since last year. So,
And we've been fortunate.
that's it.
Questions?
Oh, yes.
One thing that we wanted to say, just in case you use this, the schedule again
Mhm.
for the class enrichment for today. No, yeah, it didn't say chapter 3.
Oh,
It just said chapter 2.
Okay.
And so some of us didn't know we didn't read everything. So
I will not mark any points off. Yes, I will.
Chapter
Thank
3
you.
is a profile. In fact, it is a group of essays written by other natural naturalists in the program, or in the program. It talks about enough because all of the sources that I cited were excerpts from those essays,
Yeah.
and they were written by other chapters, individuals in other chapters. Again, creating that primary research source data.
Okay. Questions? Discussion?
With
Yes.
the buffalo or the bison, where do you see them the most? I mean,
You know,
where
there
they-
is,
now,
from what I understand, there's 2, and I could be wrong, over near NASA. There's a yes, there's a couple there.
There used to just be one.
Yeah.
It was sad. I had a botany class there.
Yeah.
oh,
But now there's 2.
And then there, if you're going to Austin, if you go up I-10 and exit 71, which starts to take off north toward Austin,
yeah,
there is a ranch off to the left.
Yeah.
And you can catch a glimpse of some out there, and they're just as majestic as you would imagine. And I keep saying, I gotta stop there. I gotta stop there. But it's usually I'm doing something.
And I think that there's also a herd, is it Caprock Canyon State Park, which is.
Caprock Canyon. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, I normally when you see them on television, they're just minding their own business, walking the street, and tourists are getting too close and realize how powerful they are when they engage with them. And they're just fascinating animals to me. Not only that one, but the Cape buffalo, the American bison, water buffalo, all of them just seem like just majestic, no nonsense type animals.
okay, difference between buffalo
Oh,
and
yeah.
bison.
Absolutely.
What
Absolutely.
is it?
I think it's the structure of the back.
Okay,
Mhm.
so they're like cousins, I guess.
Yes.
Any actual, so I remember reading in the mammal book and it caught, or the mammal chapter, and it caught my eye because it said animals you can find throughout the state. One of them was a bison.
Yeah.
Are there really any free roaming buffalo or bison in the state?
Not that I know of. When I was doing the research for this,
No, I don't think so.
there was another group of Native Americans called the Tonkawa, and they mentioned the diet of buffalo, and it would say something like, when one struggles farther south than the main herd, they would manage to capture it. I don't know of any place in Texas where there was and I could be wrong. I don't know, but there were just
You don't know
massive
that.
herds of because we had one presentation. I forget who gave it, but he talked about the bison herd, buffalo herd, and the bison herd, and how it would just agitate, for a better word, the land that they migrated across, just churn it all up and just, and these, we're just talking massive herds, just thousands of animals, and the impact it would have on, but the natural impact that it would have on the environment. So just fascinating. Yes.
Buffalo is only in like Africa, Australia, and New Zealand.
Right. Well, so buffalo and bison, there is a distinction.
Yeah, bison are only.
Sure.
They're not anywhere. They're
Yes.
like Cape Buffalo in Africa. And those are jackass. It was off a muddle.
You saying the buffalo,
Buffalo are out. There's none in North America.
but you're saying the buffalo that look like bison, they're.
Those are two different things.
So we just called it buffaloes. but
Right.
Not
That's slang
That's
term.
just the common, that's not the scientific.
You look at their more, they're not
sure.
the same thing.
So
Bison-
only the University of Colorado should be the bison.
Yeah, we didn't have buffalo.
Got it.
But when I'm talking to audiences, it's, well, that's a buffalo. That's a
Right.
buffalo nickel. That's a buffalo. It's not a bison. It's a buffalo. And so, yeah.
You see like
Scientific term.
like huge horn. And
Yeah,
like
if you're seeing
Cape
it,
buffalo in Africa. Bison, that's the only thing it looks like.
Sure.
They're not anywhere else. It's like antelope. Antelope are from nowhere else. They're ice age things that's laughing.
So as naturalists, we should know that they are bison, not
They're
buffalo.
bison.
But colloquially in America, we quite often use the term buffalo.
No buffalo.
Most people will know what you mean.
Sure.
Any other discussion?
Good.
I'm off on the bison. Got everything else.
Yes. Exactly. Ken Burns. Ken Burns. It was, yeah, it was, and that discussion and that distinction over what do we call them is in that,
Yes.
is mentioned in there.
It was all that.
Yeah, it was great. It was great.
Who's your
And it's-
favorite naturalist? The name?
You know what? There. Yeah. I like E.O. Wilson.
I loved his quote.
Yeah, I like E.O. Wilson. There is a gentleman, and I'm sure you guys have heard about it in American history. There's a gentleman by the name of George Washington Carver.
Yeah.
Just again, one of those individuals who had a niche spot in American history that he's fascinating to me. I grew up on Jacques Cousteau. And it's those things, man, I'll never do that. I'll never see places like that. I read The Beagle by Charles Darwin. So it's one of those things that you think you'll never be attached to, or you'll never be able to delve seriously into, but then life brings you around to where, man, you do it as a hobby or for enjoyment. So
Your spark animal.
Spark animal, I would say the sparking animal is the buffalo. But then you come to class and you hear people like Melanie say, I love the smell of skunks. Yeah. So you never know. Or when you see
For that.
when she does a presentation on spiders, you see their eyes, and it just goes on and on and on. You don't know what you don't know, and you turn, and then you'll come in and you'll have a presentation on climate, on weather, and on force and the power of hurricanes, and you go, my goodness, this is just fascinating. And people from different backgrounds are bringing what they enjoy and their passions to the table, and you go, that's a good idea, or I want to study that, or John, and water. The whole water program, the whole water certification, the stream team, where you can get involved in analyzing streams and things of that nature. All of that is just open to you. It's just open to you. And it's the earth in which we live on.
You just open your mind, your eyes, your senses, your arm, your heart. And
Yeah.
you'll be surprised with
What's there. But we get into our cocoons and screens and we go on about our business. And it's like, that's a big world out here. There's a big world out here. If we just, and it's been happening hurricanes didn't just start happening. Just thousands and thousands of years this has been occurring. And to get to study and be fascinated by that natural phenomenon, it's amazing.
Well, Pablo de Vaca, wasn't he marooned because of a hurricane?
Because of a storm. So you can take the weather aspect of his journey. And okay, what happened here? Yeah.
The vodka that you said landed on,
Galveston.
yeah, okay.
Yeah. And was aided by the Native Americans who were here.
Mhm.
So I could go on, folks, but I don't mind.
Any other discussion?
Are the 2 plantations you mentioned in Brazoria County, like open for tours?
From what I understand, the Levi Jordan plantation, they were putting together a program. And I don't know if that program is complete yet, to where they were going to start bringing folks in. Is it open?
No, Levi Jordan,
Varner Hall?
Werner Hogg is open.
Is it? Okay.
But if there was no furniture in it,
Okay.
Oh, okay.
but you can still go on the grounds.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Austin's headquarters was not here.
Mhm.
It was it's San Felipe,
Mm-hmm.
which is right up the road.
Awesome County.
So it's state
Mm-hmm.
or historical park. You should go sometime. If they've got a lot of, they rebuilt, they burned San Felipe when,
The Great Scrape.
yeah, the Great
Mhm.
Grape.
Mm-hmm.
And they burned it, and then they have rebuilt it, part of it. It's interesting. So here,
Mm-hmm.
it's just right up, it's near Sealy. You go up, I go up the back way, but.
That DVD that I mentioned, that in fact, that's where the setting was for the discussion on that particular place. Yeah.
San Jacinto Monument, the museum at the bottom of it is good Texas history.
Oh, yes. And again, to show you how it's all connected. When I'm teaching at San Jac or LaPorte, you are almost in eyesight of the San Jacinto Monument. And I will say, just not even 5 to 10 minutes from here, there's just a massive piece of Texas history. It's just right there. Yeah. Massive. I mean, it stands out like, well, put it this way, you can't miss it.
Right? Wetland.
Yep.
So it's got everything.
Yep. And the Battleship Texas used to be moored right across the way, but they've since moved it to Galveston. And I think they're setting up a museum of some sort to commemorate it.
So the Levi Jordan is open Wednesday through Sunday from 9 to 5.
And where is that? In West Columbia?
It's on the way towards Sweeney. You go up 523 or 521, and it's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's right as you would turn off towards Sweeney.
Yeah.
There's a dollar store across the way from it.
And see, that's the thing. Civilization has I won't say encroached, but it's grown up around these spots, and you would never know. You would never know what happened there. You would never know what's there or what, because we see there is a registry of historical markers of Brazoria County, historical markers of Texas. There's a registry, and you can filter it for Brazoria County only, and it'll show you every historical marker that's in Brazoria County and tell you exactly where they're located. And then you'll get these kind of like generic descriptions across from the Walmart or right next to the Dairy Queen, that kind of thing. And it's sitting there, and you go and you read it and say, on this spot at this particular point in time, this happened. Or that is here. Right.
But there was an app, and I don't know if it's a combination, but you can listen or read it as you drive by.
Yeah. I use it all the time. It's called Texas Historical Markers. And you can select where you're driving, like Gulf Coast region, and then you can figure out your road. You can look at the area you're in, and it'll have all these different markers. It's really neat. It's an app. Yes.
I wish I'd known about that when my kids were growing up. My whole life when we were on a road trip.
Yeah.
And we're going by when my dad would start reading it, saying it, but unfortunately he's making it up. And so I started doing the same thing with my kids. It's like, how do you know what all those markers say? And I'm like, Mom's just smart.
That's true.
I got old enough to figure it out, but I was just like
Let's go.
making it up. I could have really educated them if I had known about that.
Yeah. But folks, all I can tell you is I just 3 words: just get out and enjoy it.
I love your passion.
Well,
Mhm.
thank you.
Thanks for sharing.
Yes.
That's right, the character.
I have the feeling we have a continuation in here. We've got a lot of good people coming in too.
I grew up in Wichita Falls in North Texas in the
Yeah.
Wichita Mountains
Mhm.
and all the buffalo around there.
Mhm.
You drive through that
Yeah.
area. It's a really cool place to see bison. Sorry, bison.
Now we know better.
Yes. Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you so very much,
My
Marlon.
pleasure. My pleasure.
If technology will work with us, when we do our wetlands training, we have either a morning or afternoon. And Nate, I don't know whether you're going to be our leader for doing wetlands training on the walk from the bay. Mike is going to do it. Okay, I hadn't heard anything for sure, so I figured I'd just put you on the. Okay, I was going to put you on the spot on that. But since we're going to be out on Follett's Island, which is where Surfside is, there is a recreation of Fort Vesasco. And Chris Kneupper has done a lot of research on that. He was the gentleman that Marlon had referenced over here. He's also going to be the person who will talk to us about Columbia bottomlands. He's got a number of different passions there. But I was able to get a copy of the presentation he gave last year when we did our advanced training day that focused in on Texas history. And if you all would like, we can play it up here and give you a feel for what was going on, which I think will complement everything that Marlon has been telling you, and give you a little bit more information about exactly what was happening right there on Surfside on trying to control movement up and down the Brazos River. You all want to do that? Yeah. You need few minutes break? No? Yes, maybe. Don't know. I'll put that back.
Yes.
So what do you?
Yes.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, the names don't correspond with the right houses.
Yeah, but the big house,
No,
Marlon, closer.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah, that's sure. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, funny, the public areas. I just have to be like, what's wrong? Like, you're in there. No, not good. Other things that's about, that if you're doing great. Well, I always admire them, because I never worked very hard.
No, we're not chasing it with. Exactly. Well, thank you. Yeah, no,
Yeah. We were like, oh. No. With the tough guy. You, the markers were.
It's anything, or
Like.
each.
It's not like we're better. Well, yeah. Yeah. You do. Yeah. Okay, guys.
My name is Kneupper. Like many of you, I many different groups that you see listed on this screen right here. And one of these groups is the Cradle of Conservancy. This is a local land trust for which I have been on the board of directors for about 30 years. It is the agency that helped create the Brazoria County Park System in the early 1980s, but continues to exist. Local land trust 501c3 that collects generally small donations of land and funds, pools them, and then uses them for good purposes like transferring land to other usually government agencies. For example, the Little Masterson Park right here, we helped give that to the city of Angleton so they could create Masterson Park here in town, Little Municipal Park. But for many years, we've been involved with the property down in Surfside that we believe held the old 1832 Fort Vesasco. And for decades have had a goal to rebuild a replica of that to form a little historical park down there in what is today Surfside Beach. This is the artist's rendition of what that small, modest fort looked like. And for many decades, we have scratched in the ground down there, trying to archaeologically find remains of the fort, and largely been unsuccessful. But today I have a success story to tell you that we have found the exact location of the fort, and I will explain some things about it. And in recent weeks, our agency is now rolling out a fundraising campaign for the replica. So at the very end, I'll tell you about that. Again, the location that I'm going to talk about today is down here at Surfside Beach. With old days, this was the town known as Velasco that grew up around the location of this fort. You can see that it's at the river, the Brazoria River, which today is the Freeport Harbor Channel. And it's near where the police station and library are, high school is preschool. Because in 1929, they dug an artificial diversion channel to the Gulf. This keeps the floods of the Brazoria River wiping out the towns of Freeport and New Velasco, 50 here on the river. The location that I'm speaking about. So where to start our story? Manuel de Terran was a young, very talented Mexican general officer that was given in 1828 a position to come lead a boundary expedition to Texas. You see, there was this fellow, Stephen F. Austin, that had been marvelously successful at recruiting mostly Anglo-Americans from the United States to come to Texas and colonize. So successful that they were overwhelming the Mexican laws and customs and authorities and were not really complying with them. So the Mexican politicians sent Manuel de Terán to Texas to officially inspect the boundary which had been established by treaty with Spain in East Texas. Unofficially, he was to find out what the heck was going on in Texas. What he found alarmed him. He returned to Mexico, wrote a report. It was a precursor to the law of 1830 that forbade further immigration from the United States, among other things. And this was the reason or the cause of forming this fort at the mouth of the Brazos River at the point. This is an old map prepared by Stephen F. Austin himself, but published in Philadelphia, that shows the extent of his colony here. And what I tried to draw on this map are the green circles for the existing Mexican military garrison existed at that time. Here at La Bahia, Brazoria, San Antonio de Air, and a few even in Nacogdoches. But Terán's plan to enforce this new law was to build 6 new forts. The first of which was to be Fort Tenochtitlan, up here high on the Brazos, just beyond the boundaries of the second one was on the lower La Vaca River, called Barranco, Colorado. And the third one was Fort Anahuac, over here on the northeast corner of California. These occurred in the year 1830. In 1831, he built Fort Tenochtitlan down here on the lower Louisiana. And Fort Terán, just south of Nacogdoches, had an important road crossing in 1831. The last of the 6 forts was Fort Vesasco, built in early 1832 at the mouth of the Brazos. It was the only fort built directly upon the coast, and was probably built here because the Brazos was the port of entry for Austin's colony. Most of the commerce and immigration mouth of the Brazos, largely from New Orleans, and so they felt that a fort should be installed there. Over the years, we tried to puzzle out what this fort looked like, and different artists have drawn different drawings of what the fort may have looked like. This was a diorama built in the 1970s and was often present at the Brazoria County Historical Museum, now no longer in existence. That is the diorama. There's a drawing over there on the far left that was found in the paper of Stephen F. Austin that resembled verbal descriptions of the fort. But this fort was established in April through June 1832, just about 1 or 2 months. It was built by a man named Lieutenant Colonel Domingo de Ugartechea. He arrived with about 100 soldiers and 17 artillerymen from actually Fort Anahuac, using it as a base. And he built a circular palisade fort with 2 concentric rings of log pilings filled in partially in between with sand to create an elevated walking surface for sentries, and a central bastion that held a long 9-pounder cannon, sort of a naval cannon that could command a range of 360 degrees all around the fort. The commander at Anahuac was a man named Bradford. He was a former American that had gone into the employ of the Mexican army and was quite autocratic at that location, imprisoning some of the civilian colonists for simply disagreeing with him, as he thought he had superior power. This caused an uproar among the colonists who thought they were protected by the Mexican Constitution of 1824. As Duran and others used to say, all of these American colonists, they walk around with a copy of the Constitution in their pocket. And this caused an uproar with the colonists around Anahuac. Even here in the Brazos Valley, the district of Brazoria, as it was known, had an alcalde, a man named John Austin, who also commanded the militia. He was in an uproar, and he took the militia over there to Anahuac to forcibly remove these prisoners from the fort. Bradburn barricaded himself in the fort and wouldn't let them in, so John Austin returned to Brazoria to get cannon that was in storage at Brazoria and take it to Anahuac. And he attempted to take passage down the Brazos on a schooner called the Brazoria to take these arms and militia to Anahuac for the fight. But new Fort Vesasco stood in his way, and Ugarte had orders to support Bradburn, so he would not let them pass. This led to a small skirmish called the Battle of Velasco, where John Austin, realized that he would have to reduce Fort Velasco first before he went over to reduce Fort Anahuac. The battle plan was to put cannon and the militia on the schooner Brazoria and come down the Brazos River abreast of the fort and engage it in the darkness on the night of June 25th. The Mexican soldiers, with buildings both inside and outside the fort, would retreat into the fort, and in the darkness, land forces would encircle the fort and attack at dawn. Of course, nothing goes according to plan. The Brazoria was damaged by fire from the Mexican 9-pounder. Soldiers that came here and were secretly digging trenches in the night and building parapets. One of the soldiers against orders loaded his musket and it went off, alerting the Mexicans. And the battle began in the darkness. As they said, the fort erupted like a volcano. Unknown to the forces here, commanded by John Austin again, was the fact that a swivel gun or wall gun was mounted on that north wall and really caused a lot of casualties in these trenches. There were about a dozen killed on each side. The next morning, at dawn, came a rain shower, wetted everyone's powder, and effectively caused troops. The Mexicans, realizing they were about to run out of ammo, then surrendered. They were supposed to be carried back to Mexico on the ship, but it was damaged and there was no other available. So they actually had to march overland back to Mexico. So people in Brazoria County like to claim this is the first battle of the Texas Revolution. But it was really more, not really that, because at this point in time, 3 years before the Texas Revolution broke out, they were not really fighting for the independence of Texas. They were fighting for their rights under the Mexican Constitution of 1824. So it was more of an internal Mexican political revolution or rebellion. No description ever mentioned the size. And when we try to build a replica, we need to know how big, right? But in 1999, or in the 90s, a journal was discovered in Germany of an engineer who was in the employ of the Texas Revolutionary Army, Edward Harcourt. And he drew this drawing of Velasco in the spring of 1830. And looky here, he's got a circular fort with 2 walls and a central bastion. And he drew a scale on the fort, good engineer that he was, that we could estimate the size of that fort. It was just less than 100 feet in diameter, relatively small. This was published in 1999, and at that point, we understood that the fort needed to be this size. Where is this fort today? This is a map plat map of the new town of Velasco that was prepared in 1837. On it is a block labeled as Monument Square. Very near the vertical description of where the fort was. So beginning, especially in about 1980, we came to believe that the fort might exist in Monument Square, and that's what that was platted for, to commemorate the location of that fort. This is a blow-up on the right side of the slide of that Monument Square, and you might notice that the street next to it is called 4th Street. Across the street in block 13 of Velasco are properties colored pink, Shannon family property, call it. And the green area, which is the Archer House property. Those will come to play in just a minute or two in my next. Recently, we have discovered a deed record that talks about the conveyance of the Archer House property, the green highlight. It says something about that certain parcel of property lying and situated in the town of Velasco, known as the Archer House, with 4 lots immediately adjoining that Archer House, and not including the 2 lots near what was called the old fort. So maybe the fort is in Monument Square, maybe it's across the street next to the Archer House property. Now, I didn't point out on that map, but in another block, I'll show you in a minute, there was a Republic of Texas battery in another block. Because that was in block 61. This can only refer to the earlier Mexican border name. Block 8 and 9, block 13, and the James Thompson Shannon in 1856, and there was an existing house there. In 1898, a historian lady from Houston, Adele Luscan, published a seminal article that interviewed 2 elderly residents of Alaska, one of which was the elderly widowed Mrs. Shannon. Born in Velasco in 1841, and she gives a reliable as the old fort, which is now marked by her own residence. So the Shannon family property, she claims, was the site of the original fort. And Mr. Alexander Glass Smollett agreed with her, and Ms. Luscan published it. So we now believe that the fort is not in Monument Square, but across the street in the former block 13. I also want to point out that in the Battle of Velasco, there were some casualties. And they were buried, it was high summer, they were buried right there, somewhere near the fort. Garden Taylor's own report talks about some of his soldiers being buried there. Just a few years ago, we discovered, of all things, a newspaper article from Arkansas, published in 1833, that talks about a monument to be erected at the mouth of the River Brazos to those who nobly fought and fell on the plains of Velasco. And it describes granite and marble monument. This is what was going in Monument Square. This monument. Very often, Molly, the cousin of Stephen F., were actually going to get married before he died. Visited Velasco at Veterans Day, and she pointed out General Green, her host, pointed to the graves of those that fell in the first battle for independence. Look at the old fort, the work of the Mexicans. Velasco was quite like a place. So again, there appears to have been graves present there in old Velasco, and they were going to build a monument, but we believe that never happened. There was a extensive cholera epidemic in 1833. Indeed, John Austin and his 2 daughters died in that epidemic, and we don't believe this monument ever got treated. So that was Fort Velasco number 1. I'm going to now segue a few years into the time period of the Texas Revolution and tell you a little bit more about other Fort Vesasco. First, I want to talk about an incident called the San Felipe incident that happened off the mountain of Nebraska. You perhaps have heard this story about some town called Gonzales. It's the first shot of the Texas Revolution. Come and take it. Don't be needed. Wait, 1 month before that happened, off the mountain of Nebraska arrived the schooner San Felipe from New Orleans. On board was Stephen F. Austin. This man had been 2 years in Mexico, most of it in prison. And he was finally released and was returning to Texas from Veracruz to New Orleans and then to Velasco. Arriving aboard the San Felipe, they run headlong into a Mexican gunboat blockading the mouth of Nebraska called the Curriculum Intern. San Felipe had the wind, so the natives get across the bar into the mouth of the harbor. Head off Stephen F. Austin. The owner, Thomas McKinney, ex-Brigadier, wrote his armed volunteers on San Felipe and on the schooner Laura and sent them back out after the parade. There was an evening gun battle, overnight sea chase, and after the Correo, they sent it to New Orleans charged with piracy. Stephen F. Austin watched through the beach. This man, this diplomatic man, whose policy was fidelity to Mexico, stood on the beach, watched this battle, and changed his mind for revolution right there at Velasco. This was the first shot of the Texas Revolution, not that minor incident over at Velasco. Indeed, Stephen F. Austin left Velasco up the valley of the Brazoria, speaking for revolution, not necessarily independent protest, but revolution for the Mexican Constitution in 1824. It was an upstart in Mexico called Santa Anna. And that caused the people to rise up, some of which were at Gonzales, which then caused the battle there. So that was a symptom of that. This is the true start of the Texas Revolution, and it happened right here in Brazoria. Indeed, you might remember that in March of 1836, Texas signed its own independence, Declaration of Independence. But 4 months earlier, the what they call the provisional government of Texas established a navy. Thomas McKinney and partner Samuel A. Williams were instrumental in acquiring 2 of the 4 schooners for this navy, armed them heavily in New Orleans. And they began operating off this coast right about the end of 1835. There were 4 armed schooners, and their primary port was where? The major seaport on the coast at that time, the mouth of the Brazos. Galveston as a town and port did not exist yet. Houston as a town and port did not exist yet. The major port in this portion of upper Texas coast was the mouth of the Brazos, Velasco, and Quintan. And that was the main thing serving this navy. You might remember that at the time of the Battle of San Jacinto, reinforcements were coming to Texas on ships for Santa Anna and supplies. This navy captured those and instead gave those to Santa Ana and allowed the victory at San Jacinto. So again, the first Republic of Texas Navy operated out of the mouth of Nebraska. Also at Velasco, at this time, another port was built at the mouth of the Nebraska. Texas Revolutionary Army. We found this map, this diagram in the Nacogdoches archive. We seem to show a polygon-shaped port, 4 gun positions, words in English. This archive only goes through 1836. This could be nothing other than the 1836 Fort Vesasco, as you see it named right here on the walls. Keep this diagram up. So we believe that this might be that Lot 61 battery that is shown on that plat map I showed you earlier. So this is Fort Vesasco number 2. You may also recall something called the Battle of San Jacinto. Have y'all ever heard of that? Well, they captured Santa Ana there, temporarily took him to Galveston Island where he was held aboard one of the schooners of the Texas Navy for a few days. But then the ad interim government of Texas with Santa Ana boarded those ships and came over here to Velasco. This is a picture of a two-story structure called the Brown Hopkins Hotel and Tavern, which is probably where those government men stayed and where they treated with Santa Ana. Signed the treaties of Velasco several weeks later in middle of May. Indeed, we just celebrated the anniversary of that. I have a newspaper article over here about our recent event on Thursday. And this was the seat of government for 5 months in 1836. You perhaps have heard this other story. Some town called West Columbia. They said they are the first capital of the Republic of Texas. It was really at Velasco. Now, to play a word, there's the word capital and capitol. If it's an O, it refers to the building in which the legislature convenes. And indeed, the first capitol of Texas, Republic of Texas, was those buildings in West Columbia. But 5 months before that, the government met in this hotel and tavern and conducted the business of the new Republic of Texas. Beginning about a week after the Battle of San Francisco, in October, when they moved over to West Columbia. They had the elections in September. The San Houston, remember, was elected first president, and then they moved over there and began to convene there. This is an interesting map published in 1858. Poverty measured in 1852. It shows that Velasco was grown into a small, prosperous town of the mountain traffic. Center here, today where the LNG plant is, where it's looking at it was back from the mountain. Monument Square is observable here at the site phase. Archer House was grown into a complex of buildings, and the shaded mountain spread here. The Civil War, town people built a rudimentary fort out near the junction of the river and wall. Here is the town, Monument Square, and you have sort of a tent with a flag. Probably this was where the soldiers encamped. Man was 4 years. It's been 2 gun positions. I believe they were taken down and 10. This we put together in very early part of the war.
Brian, be on the other side.
But ultimately, as the Yankees executed their Anaconda plan for the Mississippi River and took control of that, shutting down a lot of the cotton trade out of the Mississippi, the Brazos became more important. The whole complex and facilities were built to guard the mountain. This was the Civil War for Velasco. There was one in Montana, one up the river here. Bridge here over bayous, pontoon bridge here, and trails going over to Mudford began the arts give access to the Winter Creek. That point, 50 years ago. In the late 1863 and early 1864, the sports were completed. One here, known as number 1, shown on this diagram, the Fort Vesasco was built at Velasco. And here is the description of it. It had 4 main gun positions and a rear bastion with a 5th gun platform. This was the fort here, number 3, Fort Base, or Fort Buchanan, directly across the river. Number 2, Fort Carroll, that's the one about a mile up the river. Down here is a small redan that was built to guard one of the streets. So this was Fort Velasco number 4, Beaver County. It probably was like this. That earth embankment board, brick and timber had become obsolete due to the increased accuracy and power of the gunfire. So they built these thick walls of earth covered the side. This is the drawing of Kingdom of South Carolina. that looks a lot like that Fort Vesasco. This is an engineer's diagram of that fort, showing the details of magazines and bomb proofs. In that fort, essentially that rear back there come to play in this school. Now I'm going to segue to modern times. Beginning in the late 1960s, a local group hearing of this history, Bridgewood Fort Glass, found some remains down there in Surfside. They found his cisterns, they found his great fireplace, his great foundation, that at the time they believed was remnants of the 1832 Fort Vesasco. Most of these people were engineers, Texas Society of Professional Engineers chapter, and on their own volition, they bought up lots, acquiring all of his property. They drew up this diagram for a 300-foot diameter fort, a replica to be built. They formed the Fort Vesasco Restoration Association, but they never acquired all the property they thought they needed, and they certainly didn't have very many funds. So this never came to fruition. But they were planning for a 300-foot diameter replica in the 1970s. As the plans for the Port of Freeport developed, they wished to widen the mouth of the harbor and move the jetty 200 yards. So at first they hired a cultural resource survey done in late 1980 by the Center for Archaeological Research out of UTSA. And this is a diagram from their report. Shows the mouth of the river. This Coast Guard station and with the modern streets of Surfside shown on this map, overlaid the old blocks of the land, the old structures of the land. And they were very crucially identified as the street known as Fort Street. Our street is a modern street today known as Monument Avenue, right in front of City Hall. It's a very important landmark. They projected where Monument Square would be. At the time, they still believed Monument Square was the location of the port. It was really interesting. This is our below here on the right side, again showing that area and Fort Street right here. So beginning at this time, it sort of became dogma that the 1832 port was in Monument Square, but as I showed you earlier, that turned out not. These are some additional diagrams from that report. It shows some minor excavations that they did, the brick foundation, the chimney base of the cistern in what was modern Surfside block. I believe it's block 568, is what they call it on the Surfside block. And then they protect before the fall three, where they thought Monument Square was. This street, Monument Avenue, set up with the Coast Guard Road or Avenue East, was the road that led to the Coast Guard station. And when Velasco had become a ghost town in the late 1800s, I'll explain that in a minute. This was the only road that station existed on top of Old Fort Street. So this is a very important physical reference today when we try to locate. As the harbor widening actually began in the early 1990s, one of the first steps was to move the old jetty and move over about 200 yards. And as it projects into the land, the first thing they did was dig a big trench into the land and move the old boulders of the jetty, fill that trench. So they used a backhoe, a mechanical device, to dig out this very deep trench. And when they did that, they found all sorts of walkways and evidence of the old Civil War port. The operator took home 29 cannonballs. No one spoke to the Corps of Engineers, no one stopped the work, and they dug right through the old Civil War fort, and then they dredged out those 200 yards of dirt. Or we found out about this a year or two later when we interviewed the operator and learned it. Drew up this map here. This getting line, this was the former Coast Guard station, and this was where those were discovered. This was a 40-foot wide trench. Like they take this instrumental, is fighting that 110, 125 designation, right, with arms and all. A collector at that time came on grid, working into the Harlem Channel, deadlines over here. And these are the things we covered. We discovered 2 big howitzer shells and some 12-pound cannonball. Lot of lead shot that he took home. And we recently posted this on Facebook, and we showed it. As this dredging occurred, we in the Brazoria Archaeological Society were watching closely, and we observed that here's the Getty line. This diagram. As the cut bank moved with the dredge toward the new Getty line, we saw that there were artifacts being revealed in that bluff or that cut bank. So we called in the Texas Historical Commission, and then James Rousset came down. And when he arrived down there, and as we were walking along the cut bank, Johnny Poland of the Fort Archaeological Society reached over and pulled out from the cut bank a cutlass, handed it to Mr. Rousset. Mr. Rousset said, turn to the Corps representative. Do you have anybody on contract to do archaeology? Included those people hard, and they stopped the dredging for a few months, and they did a quick archaeological. The block 11 of Vesasco, block 13 in here, and now Archer House Complex on the square. And they thoroughly trenched and excavated this area in the summer of 1992. And I helped. We did a geophysical survey in the Monument Square area, finally, in 2015, attempting to find this fort. These are the anomalies. We were unsuccessful in finding a circular structure or fort. We identified areas what we did. We identified areas that missed. And with our recent research, it was all street. An area that the cradle of Texas Conservancy already owned from the Fort Vesasco Restoration. We did a geophysical survey in the summer of 2020, in the middle of COVID, published a report in August of 2021. We used ground penetrating radar, this device here, soil conductivity with this device, and also used soil magnetometry, basically the fancy metal detector hooked to a computer to map the soil. This is the magnetometer here. I'm not going to hurry since we're running out of time. These are the kind of signatures that we can see. This is a map of the survey area with the conductivity results on the right, the magnetometer survey on the left. This is one a horizontal slice from the GPR data. As you can see, some faint circular images here. Some over here. This is another slice, continuing to show square anomaly at a fairly deep level, almost 4 meters. This is some work from the analysis that we did, identifying anomalies over them. And basically what we discovered, the red line shows the extent of our survey area. We believe that we discovered that back bastion of the Civil War fort. Here's what we discovered. This is the Getty line over water. metal here, you lay on top of it, that old Fort Vesasco diagram, indicating that that's likely that rear back of the fort. And so here on that, and then are those multiple circular images found in the various slices of the GPR. At Gunner, we found the location of the 1832 fort from Monument Square. City of Surfside, 2017, under the impression it was over here, but we now found it just across the street here, beside the cave. The remainder of the Civil War fort, the early Civil War fort and the Texas Revolutionary fort were all lost in that 200 yards were dredged out. Why did we not find them? Well, this is a 1930s area that shows the mouth of the Brazos River. We had all the spoil mounds along the incipient intracoastal canal, Brazos River, including one big spoil mound right there on top of the Civil War fort site. And over that area, we believe that unregulated dredging in the early parts of the 20th century caused many feet of spoil to be placed on top of the site, and it was simply too deep for us ever to find physical things. So we believe that the spoil mounds basically cover these areas. Remember, in the old days, those islands were very low lying, but today they sit up fairly high. This is another picture. The large spoil mound is here. The area was the old green line here, 2 lines. See here, it's sort of covered that area. So here are our conclusions. You know, there wasn't one Fort Vesasco, there were 4. The earliest one being the 3 forts in the lab. Mexican soldiers, second one in the Texas Revolution. Hey, the Texas Revolution started and ended to go to Velasco. Santa Ana signed the treaties of Velasco there, ending Texas Revolution. Third, fourth built in the time of the Civil War. Recent archaeology work found that location of some of these forts. I think that's some of this stuff. Maybe more details are found on this historical website here. We're able to take our website here, and we even now have a Facebook page because we're rolling out fundraising finally after decades to actually build a replica. There's more information on this. There's trifold over here if y'all want to see that later today. Any questions? Yes, sir. There are no specific plans for any archaeology because the 1832 war was occupied for a short period of time. There's probably not much time. Those are trainings for the DPR, and the very good point is going to be fence all of that for artifacts. So we don't currently have any plans, for that. The plans for the replica, I didn't mention it, but since the 1830s, about 1/4 mile of beach has retreated from the beach of the 1830s, where the fort sort of sat near the beach. On that new land, today is Surfside J Park, is where we propose to build a replica, not covering up the site of the original fort, so that someday archaeology might be possible. But with very few volunteers, very few funds, we don't think there's a priority to do any archaeology. Our funds, we believe, is going toward the replica. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Sir, that was circular pits that I mentioned, referred to as a timeline circle, and it is considered a temporary structure. We believe the next big hurricane is that this will not survive. So it's not considered a permanent structure. It was designed by the city of Surfside Beach to mark the approximate location of the fort as they then do it in 2017. But we don't expect it to survive decades of time. We are wanting to build a much more substantial, permanent replica that will withstand hurricane. Yes, sir. At the time of the dredging and this work that Pruitt and Associates did, there were substantial artifacts recovered during that excavation, and those are present at the Brazoria Museum of Natural Science. A small portion are on display, but most are in storage in the back of that facility. We have a massive Staffordshire collection, transferware, and is referred to as the Velasco collection, and is in storage in that facility, and is sometimes transported for temporary display elsewhere. That answer your question? Okay. So you said you were there. Yes, sir. I was there for the minor portion of the time. There's a fee. Well, we have a local archaeological society called the Brazoria County that I found in 1980 that paid attention to sort of like the local watchers when the dredge work began. Pop survey in 1980, did not delve deep enough to get many of the details about certain work and had never identified the location. So they didn't even know it was there. And only when the French got the tribal operator finding some remnant of that. But he kept the artifact and didn't say anything to the authority. Well, yes, they are the ones hired to do the associates or that subsequent work. But they focused on lot 11 of Fort Vesasco and found structure. I might say lot 11 is where the ground Austin Tower is, where the buildings and a prisoner is, and they found the footer for those buildings, there. But then that was wiped out by subsequent bridge work. But not clearly being in recent years, the organization that I'm part of, Regulatory Services, got serious about a replica plan. Yeah. We realized it has to do a deep dive into the research. We hired a firm to do that. Geophysical survey in 2015, under the impression that they would do archival work. In the scope of work that actually got developed, you certified that archive for economy. And they did not do the research. So in my COVID permit, digging, most of it is their archive in Bristol Center in Austin. Made a few trips. They were closed for COVID for a long time. I had to do it remotely to make the library archive. Gradually reassembled in the summer of 2019. So the story that I'm telling you comes to life. That's the middle of 2019. Then it worked. Should have done. Here.
Oh, no. That's a little bit more information to tell you about
what you're gonna see when we go and see the replica. But now you know a little bit of the background behind it. Okay, any questions?
What are we gonna go see?
When are we gonna go see it?
What are we went to the Brad's, that
Yeah.
area?
You really don't know, right?
Well, I missed the first part of what she said.
We will do it when we have our wetlands training. And that's
March 6th.
March 6th. Okay. It's a little bit further ahead of us. But one thing on the wetlands training, when we go out and walk the island, you can always count on it being the windiest day of the year. That we'll have gale force winds. We'll have to probably put a rope on the ocean and make sure that she doesn't start floating away. Or else we'll use her as a pilot. But for some reason, it seems like every time we do it, it's cold, it's windy, it's pretty miserable until we get to the beach, and then it suddenly becomes warm and pleasant.
It's the 23rd.
23rd.
March 23rd.
23rd, okay. Thank you. But it's still well worth it. And I thought we could see that the replica of the fort at the same time, which kind of brings a little bit of our history to life. Okay. Any questions?
The mystery they saw.
Yeah, it's quite an ordeal. Chris is a bit like a bulldog, I think, once he gets a hold of himself. Okay. Well, guys, I really appreciate you staying with us. I think we had a really interesting look at the history of Brazoria County with Marlon, and this was a little bit of a deep dive into the archaeology. Let's see, what's our next topic?
Entomology?
Entomology. Yes, it is supposed to be rainy. Okay, I would recommend you bring reindeer. Yes. Yes, I've already confirmed it. They are finding a lot of aquatic insects there. Back during the summer, the pond, the Big Slough Pond, was completely dry. The alligators had kind of dispersed into muddy holes and places where they had dug and put themselves into kind of a suspended, kind of a torpor. And we didn't have very many insects that we could actually show other than mosquito larvae. Mosquito larvae will live past the apocalypse, I'm pretty sure. So when we go this time, we'll go through a full study of the different types of insects. I do recommend you read your entomology section in the book. He'll go through it pretty fast, but he has very good photos on it. Then we'll have the microscopes out in the lab. We'll go out, we'll do some mop nets, which are aquatic nets instead of sweeping through the brush and stuff with a butterfly type net. We'll have nets that have a mesh in the bottom of them to let the water through. And we will see what we find hiding in the gunk down at the bottom. You're going to get a lot of vegetation that's rotting, which is fabulous to hide the aquatic insects. And we'll see shrimp, we'll see crawdads, we may see some leeches, we may see some really interesting creatures. Definitely be looking for dragonfly larvae, Dobson larvae, anything like that. And it is amazing as we start going through to look at them. And then we use the microscopes to be able to see the details. We'll give you the books that we give the kids as they go through this section. They get about 30 to 40 minutes with us in there. We have them look under the microscope at 2 different samples, and they draw whatever little creature is in there, identify what it is, write down some characteristics of it, and then we let them play. And for the kids, that's when the real learning comes in. They're going out there, they're looking at feathers, they're looking at beetles, they're looking at butterflies, they're looking at scorpions. They're having a ball. And when they're doing that, I know those brain cells are firing like crazy. And that's when it's really fun with the kids. But that part of it will help train you that if you're interested in doing the deep program, you've probably heard it mentioned various times. That's where we do we bring in the 4th graders and the 7th graders in small groups. We cycle them through, they go birding, they dip stuff out of the pond. We do the microscope lab, we do reptiles, and they learn about alligator safety while they're there. And during their day, they really kind of get a feel for what the purpose of the refuge is. And it's a lot of fun for the kids. And the kids usually behave real good. Sometimes the 7th graders, they can be a handful sometimes. You just can't let them get control. Okay. Questions? Problems? Okay. Well, thank you all. I'm going to say we've finished our class, and we'll have it's 8 o'clock. So that'd be 2.5 hours of training here. And I will send out how to enter that time, and we'll be ready to go on to our next topic. So thank you, everybody, online and offline. And we will see you all on Saturday.